What is up, guys? Private Eye Russ here, and welcome to the Private Eye Russ YouTube slash Instagram slash X channel. This is another episode of Private Eye Russ Reacts. In case you're wondering, I am Private Eye Russ. I'm a licensed private investigator, and right now we are wearing the black bowler of justice. Okay, so we've got a gentleman here. He's an attorney here in Orange County, Florida, beautiful Orange County, Florida. Satawa Law, shout out to Satawa Law. This is a reaction, fair use, and he's talking about the sex crimes are overreported and false allegations. Statistics are staggering. So I've talked about this many times. You keep hearing people talk about how the frequency of a false grape allegation is not that much. Well, it's not that much unless you happen to be the person on the receiving end. And we've talked before about how many, another attorney's talked about how frequently they see cases that they're working that wind up being false allegations. I've worked almost 20, and every single one I've worked on as a helper, I'm an investigator. So when I'm working criminal defense, the attorney obviously is doing the heavy lifting. I'm just providing some of the raw materials. I'm on the ground. I'm the foot soldier, and they're the generals doing their thing. So I'm not an attorney, but all I'm doing is I'm helping them, mount a good legal defense. So, so this is what they do. That's not one of my specialties. I specialize in, kind of a few things, but we do everything. But I've done a ton of homicide cases from the negligent security aspect. I've done over 80 in the state of Florida over the last 15, 19 years, something like that, since I've been licensed, however long it's been. And I've done a bunch of them, and very, very successfully with some of my law enforcement partners. So I'm grateful for that. But I've also done a lot of criminal defense, murder, grape allegations. The list goes on. We also conduct undercover corporate theft, corporate espionage, or we call it competitive intelligence. So, I've done a lot along with the mate check and, the spousal cheating type thing, male and female. And I've said it before. I've done both. I only write stories about the women, cheating, because men are incredibly easy to catch cheating. Anyway, so let's hear what Mr. Satawa Law has to say about the over-reporting and the false allegation statistics. Anyway, and if you do need help, my name is, again, you can reach out to me on X, send me a direct message, or email me at russ@privateeyeruss.com, russ@privateeyeruss.com. I'm not just a licensed investigator. I also own a private investigative agency. Anyway.
I'm Mark Satawa, principal attorney at Satawa Law, and today's video blog topic is sex crimes. Are they underreported or overreported? As experts in this area of sex crimes, we're often asked, is it true that sex crimes are overreported? Because I always thought they were underreported, or vice versa. The answer is actually interesting, because the answer is both. Sex crimes are certainly the most underreported crime. One of those reasons is because there's typically no independent proof of it. If someone is shot and killed, there's a body. If someone steals $1 million, there's $1 million missing. If someone steals a car, there's a car that's gone. Sexual assault, typically the body of the crime, what's sometimes called the corpus delicti of a crime, is not is plain. It's not as visible. It doesn't come until the victim comes forward and talks about it. For that reason, they certainly are underreported when compared to other crimes. However, the interesting piece of that is that the inverse is always true. The idea that sex crimes are the most overreported crime is spelled out and documented by a large body of research and statistics.
All right, let me pause right there. So I don't often quote statistics or collated data from different sources. I typically give you guys an explanation or my point of view based on the things that I've seen, either life experience or as a licensed investigator or whatever it is while I'm doing executive protection work. I go by just what I've seen, because that's just what I do. But we're going to hear some interesting statistics about the reporting of grape crimes or segs crimes, and the numbers are staggering. Really, really scary stuff.
Here's the bottom line, folks. one false allegation is too many. Ask the members of the Duke lacrosse team.
Now, this is in all due respect to people who actually are victims of grape. Shout out to you. Prayers go out to you. Anybody who does these things and is actually guilty of these things should be prosecuted within the to the full extent of the law, and they should be punished. They should throw them away, lock them away, throw away the key. We're not talking about people who are actually guilty. We're talking about the people who are actually innocent who have been accused.
What kind of effect that well-publicized allegation of sexual assault had on the three boys that were ultimately charged, what kind of effect it had on their schooling, what kind of effect it had on their reputation, what kind of effect it had on their families, their moms, their dads, their siblings.
Fair use. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the bowler. I've had this cat hat for about 3-4 years.
What kind of effect it had on their future. Devastating impact when falsely accused of an offense like this. A loss of reputation, a loss of your job frequently. In another vlog, we'll talk about the impact it has on your ability to remain in school. Obviously, the loss of reputation and your standing in the community. So each and every false allegation of sexual assault should be seen as a problem, a very serious problem. So in reviewing this question, the first place I went was the Department of Justice. I mean, this is the alleged authority on crime in this country, and in fact, it's a prosecutorial body. The FBI's own website. I mean, I think most people would look at that as a relatively reliable and certainly not pro-criminal defense source. The FBI's own website suggests that false allegations of forced sexual assault are around 8 to 10%. That compares to about 2% of all other crimes. So by effect, 4 to 5 times more sexual assault allegations are false than other crimes. That is a...
Think about that. 4 to 5 times more false sex assault allegations than any other crime. And then, so when I talk about these numbers and stats, people go online, and you've even seen some people, some really clownish people saying that, well, even if the men aren't guilty, they should accept guilt anyway because of what some dude did in the past. Sorry, miss, I didn't do anything to you. Most of these guys today didn't do anything to you. Nothing was probably done to most of you who are talking all this stuff about, things that occurred to people in the past. What happened in the past is in the past. I'm not guilty of anything. These guys that are being accused falsely are not guilty of anything. We don't owe you anything.
Staggering statistic, and one that even if we believe the FBI, and there are statistics that put the figure far higher than that, but even if we were to believe the FBI, puts the figure at 1 out of 10 allegations of forced sexual assault are false. However, as I said, when you look at the data shows a much different story. Some research shows that the rate of false allegations of sexual assault can be as high as 40%.
As high as 40% can be. Some, okay? So let's go ahead and there's a caveat. Some sources indicate up to 40%. That's 4 out of 10 men who are being falsely accused of one of the most heinous things you could do. And so, when I look at the cases I've worked on, these almost 20 men, we're looking at 18 cases right now, who they had the financial wherewithal to hire an attorney, and they had the financial wherewithal and the wisdom to hire a hotshot investigator like Private Eye Russ. If you're up against it, you need some help, I'm your guy. I will help you. This is one of the things I specialize in, just because I'm so passionate about it. Like, I don't think anybody should get railroaded for something they didn't do, especially something this bad, because when you go to prison on one of these charges, they're considered in prison speak bad charges. Anything against women, children, anything involving of any sort of sexual nature, man, you will be victimized in the most awful ways. Anyway, let's hear what he has to say. Sorry, fair use.
over 1 in 3 allegations of sexual assault can be false. The details of this research can be found on our website at satawalaw.com. But just to briefly highlight some of these, the Innocence Project, founded by Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, have found that since 1989, 25% of sexual assault cases referred to the FBI where results could be obtained, the primary suspect has been excluded by forensic DNA. 10,000 sexual assault cases since
25% of them have been excluded by DNA. So what he's talking about is whenever someone reports a grape, there's a thing they can do at the hospital called a grape kit, and what they do is they collect DNA. Obviously, I'm not going to go into details about how they do it, but that's to preserve any DNA evidence. Obviously, for obvious reasons. But and so 25% of the guys that were accused were excluded. Okay, let's keep going. Fair use.
1989, 2,000 tests have been inconclusive, 2,000 tests have been excluded, and 6,000 is matched. That is an incredibly high figure. But more than that, we go into other academic studies. Truth and false allegations in sexual abuse in child custody disputes. The Journal of Child Psychiatry. False allegations, archives of sexual behavior. 41%, according to a study done by Jordan in 2004 entitled Beyond Belief, Police Rape and Women's Credibility in the Journal of Criminal Justice. 41% false. 11% false malicious claims, and 35% recorded by the police as no crime having occurred.
41% of men accused of the unthinkable against their own children during child custody disputes where they just didn't do it, and alienating someone against their child from their child and then accusing them of something that awful should be a criminal offense, but it is not, unfortunately.
Adding those together to be 35% in a study in England in 1999 called A Question of Evidence, Investigating and Prosecuting Rape in the 1990s. Again, the facts, the studies, there's links to over a dozen studies that talk about these numbers, but here's the bottom line. Whether it's 1 in 10 or 1 in 3, sexual assault is a crime that is different. Most of us, we're never going to be charged with murder. We're never going to go and steal $1 million. But many of us that have gone through divorces, child custody hearings, have met someone, gone on a date, gone through a divorce, gone through a painful breakup with a boyfriend.
Which is why I tell guys that you have to be so careful. There's a protocol that you have to go through. There are things that you have to use, tactics and techniques you have to use when you're meeting women and when you're dealing with them. Now, none of these can stop you from being accused, but what they can do is make it easier for you to prove your innocence. Okay. And again, when I say these things, I say these just because, I've worked so many cases where guys like literally didn't do anything wrong, but they got accused. And the scary part is this: in every single one of these cases that I've worked on, that men were found to be innocent. The prosecutor or the state attorney said, okay, this is getting dropped because we had to prove them innocent versus them proving them guilty, was that there was no evidence that should have led to their arrest in the first place. Normally, there has to be some sort of evidence of a crime for you to be arrested. In these cases, the only impetus there was, or the only stimuli there was in the system to get these men arrested was that someone pointed a finger and said, he did this to me, go get him. And they went and picked these guys up. So these men got perp walked. All these men got perp walked from in front of their family, their friends, their co-workers, their peers, from their gymnasiums, out to dinner. One guy was at dinner with his family, and the police made a really big show. And so, the whole believe all victims or believe all women, it's not even victims. It's just women. You should just believe women. Don't believe men, just believe women. And it's a horrible injustice. And so the guys that I defended, they could afford an attorney. What about the guys who couldn't afford an attorney? How many of those guys are languishing in prison right now, enduring horrible conditions and treatment? So when what I tell guys is this: if you are up against one of these charges, shout out to Satawa Law, satawalaw.com. Apparently they're supposed to be very good at it. There are others, but they're, from what I heard from attorneys, I don't know them, but from attorneys I've spoken with, they're actually very good at what they do. So look them up. I'm not being paid to endorse them. Don't know them, but people that I know that know attorneys, other attorneys say that they're good. If you have to sell a kidney and get a paid attorney. Do not use a public defender. Public defenders are not there to defend you. They're not there to keep you out of prison. They're not there to present evidence. They're there. Their job, their role in the criminal justice system is to usher you quietly and efficiently into the prison system with as little resistance and fanfare as possible. So if you need an attorney and you're in a fight for your life, which you very well could be, because we've talked about how people get treated when they go to prison for this sort of crime, then you know what? Get the best attorney you can afford, mortgage your house, do what you got to do. Anyway, sorry, fair use.
Friend or a girlfriend, but for the grace of God, there go many of us. It takes the word of a person with an axe to grind, a complaint to be made, a bad motive, or malicious intent, and the word of that person alone, without any corroborative evidence, is frequently and usually enough to charge you with this crime.
That's what I just said. Oh, okay. Well, I'm reacting to this video. I just saw the beginning of it. I didn't see the whole video, but yeah, just the person's word. Hey, he did it, and they're just going to grab these guys. And so when I was reviewing some of these cases, I'm saying, okay, what evidence do they have against them? And the attorney's like, he was accused. I was like, that's it? Yeah, I remember the first one I worked. Shout out to, there's an attorney here in Orlando, Anton Nace, used to be with December and Nace. Mike December passed away, God rest his soul. Great attorney, probably the very aggressive criminal defense attorney, and has a distinction, in my opinion, of being the most well-dressed attorney I've ever met in my entire life. Anyway, but yeah, so the evidence, there is no evidence except just someone accused you, and that's not how our criminal justice system is supposed to work. Anyway, fair use.
That's why there's so many instances of false allegation, and that's why these cases are so different. That's why they're different than property crimes and theft and embezzlement. That's why you need a specialist, an expert in these type of offenses, because the incident of false allegations is very real. It's prominent and, quite frankly, stunning. So if you're faced with an allegation of sexual assault, do yourself a favor. Get on the internet, do your research, find an expert, find a specialist, find a lawyer whose practice focuses on these offenses. Interview that person, vet that person, ask the right questions, find the right lawyer for you, and go out there and show that this just didn't happen, folks. I'm falsely accused. It can, in the end, mean the difference between freedom and acquittal versus conviction, prison, and the sex offender registry.
All right, shout out to Satawa Law once again. Yeah, 100%. It is egregious. So many guys are getting falsely accused, and part of the reason for that is that there needs to be a change in some of the way the legislature and the laws and the statutes work. False accusations should result in prison time. They should result in prison time. If someone maliciously accuses someone, I'm not talking about someone who's a legitimate victim. Legitimate victims, different category, completely different category. Somebody forcibly doing that to someone should never happen. Through force, physical force or coercion, should not happen. It just shouldn't. And when it does happen, the perpetrator should be prosecuted vigorously. But my issue is that some of these numbers are way higher than 10%, and the FBI does have a way of they have a history of skewing certain numbers in certain ways to fit certain narratives. Obviously, we know from recent news that the FBI is not always the most reliable source of information, but protect yourselves. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to be talking about ways to protect yourself if you ever are accused of some sort of inappropriate behavior, up to and including grape. There are ways you can protect yourself or help protect yourself, and again, you can't prevent someone from accusing you or saying anything. Anybody can say anything. Doesn't make it true, but what you can do is stack the deck in your favor so that if you do have to mount a defense, whether it's with an attorney or not, you have several tools at your disposal that can be helpful. Anyway, it's your boy Private Eye Russ. Again, I'll be here on YouTube. I'll be putting out videos regularly. I think I've put out videos like 3 days in a row so far, so that's a record for me, just because I stay so busy sometimes. And I do a lot of research. I'm also out in the street, knocking on doors, talking to people, searching for people. Right now, I'm in the middle of a trafficking case, and so some of those can become very involved as far as manpower hours. But also too, you can reach out to me at russ@privateeruss.com. That's russ@privateeruss.com. I've got a website coming soon, and a few other really, really exciting announcements that are going to make things interesting, guys, going forward. Anyway, it's your boy Private Eye Russ, and again, this is the bowler hat of justice. Let me know what you guys think. Look at that, boy. Look at that. Ooh, that's nice. The bowler hat of justice. Anyway, it's your boy Russ. I am out.
Thank you for watching today's vlog. My name is Mark Satawa, and again, at Satawa Law, we are defending your rights, protecting your future.